Are continuing with a fantastic discussion that we have had before, but we are going to get into in greater detail when it comes to the issue of torture in Uganda. It's a very big issue that is prevalent in our society and our country today, and we must find a solution. We must find a way to stop this issue. First and foremost, we know that the right to life is guaranteed by God, guaranteed by the word of God, that we need to respect the right to life, and so torture is against that right. And then also it's also guaranteed by the laws of the land that torture is something that is a no-no and must not be done, as we protect life and health and the sanctity of life, that is. So we are having that discussion today as we continue to discuss solutions to this very big problem in our country today. And with me once again making a return to discuss this issue is Mr. Paul Makalera Kirya, who is the Communications and Advocacy Officer at African Center for Torture Victims. You are welcome once again to Issues at Hand.
Yes, thank you so much, moderator, for hosting me here once again. The viewers out there, still, my name is Paul Kirya Makalera. I'm in charge of Communications and Advocacy at the African Center for Treatment and Rehabilitation of Torture Victims, ACTV.
Indeed, yes. And for those of us who might have missed the first time you're here, can you take us through what the African Center for Torture Victims does exactly?
Yeah, we basically handle, like the name speaks for itself, we basically do treatment and rehabilitation. We also do advocacy against acts of torture, gender-based violence and other forms of violence. We also do socio-economic empowerment. We also do mental health in terms of rehabilitation, but also the research and documentation is very key in the work we do, because our goal is to advocate from an evidence-based angle. Then also we also do institutional organization building growth. So basically it is that treatment, rehabilitation and advocacy, as well as research and documentation.
Indeed, and later on we shall get into what the center is doing when it comes to curtailing this very big issue of torture. Now, let's get straight into the conversation, starting from the basics. So what exactly does the law say about torture, the law and other instruments, international instruments, for example? And when it comes to this discussion on torture, what constitutes torture?
Thank you so much. You see, of course, the laws are very clear about torture. First of all, in our constitution, the supreme law of the land, it guarantees that every citizen has a right to freedom from torture or cruel, inhuman, degrading treatment or punishment. That is Article 24 of the Constitution. It goes ahead and even makes this freedom absolute. The lawyers will say non-derogable, that there is no justification whatsoever to engage in an act of torture or to violate someone's right to freedom from torture or to abuse it. So that is Article 44 of the Constitution. So there is no justification whatsoever. You see, there are four rights which have no justification for violation or limitations. That is freedom from torture, 1. 2 is freedom from slavery or servitude. 3 is right to a fair hearing. 4, right to habeas corpus, an order to habeas corpus, to be presented before court in both dead or alive. It is a Latin word. So in most cases, for me, when you people say that, oh, we want to discuss issues of torture, what came in my mind was looking at what is happening currently, the current context in Uganda. Of course, what I forgot to say is that even to engage in an act of torture is criminal. We already have a Prevention and Prohibition of Torture Act, as well as the regulations which criminalize acts of torture. So when we are discussing issues of torture, I told myself, I think so many people have talked about what torture is, but the challenge is maybe we are doing the wrong thing in terms of talking about what torture is, and I told myself that discussing what torture is of less importance to Uganda and Ugandans in terms of finding tangible solutions in the prevention and accountability drive. And I said, how about we started speaking about who is this torture survivor or torture victim? Because it is from knowing who a torture victim is that we now get to know, okay, what is torture?
But you also can't know who a torture victim is unless you understand what torture is. And the reason why it's important for us to understand these basics is because, and we shall get into that, the context that you are talking about. And when it comes to the Ugandan context, when it comes to torture, we are usually talking about torture from security operatives, especially against opposition leaders in government and whatnot. But does that also extend to torture that is carried out in our homes? Do we carry torture in our homes? Because as a family, we want to understand we might not be part of that torture that's being carried out by security operatives, but are we carrying out torture in our own homes? So that is why it's important for us to understand what torture is.
Yes, maybe let me repeat what torture is to the viewer out there. Under our Prevention and Prohibition of Torture Act, the laws of Uganda, torture is any act done by any person to anyone, and that action causes severe pain or suffering on the mind or body of that person they have done that act on, and that is usually done intentionally, systematically, and for a purpose. The purpose may be to punish the person. The purpose can be to intimidate or coerce the person to do or not do something. The purpose can be to obtain information, a confession. So those are the known parameters under which an act of torture may be said to have been committed. Torture can be committed, and it can be done. It can be perpetrated by inaction or by omission. Omission, it is whereby a DPC, for example, is expected to have authority and to take action over a certain incident, but he absconds from his authority and looks on. It is mainly in terms to do with either negligence, sort of. You look on as some action is being taken. To bring it to the common person, whenever some of you, when you are growing up, your parents, when they were punishing their children for something which has gone wrong, at times they could leave out the young ones and they punish the elder or the eldest for actions of the what? Of the young ones. Why? Because you ought to guide your juniors on what should be done, other than watching on. So under the current context, criminal law in Uganda on torture punishes not only the person who has directly been involved in taking action in an act of torture, but also the person who ought to have done something to prevent the incident from taking place. So they take all of them in terms of punishment.
So when it comes to the vice of torture,
yes,
where does it stem from and how big is this problem in Uganda?
Torture lives with us. It is with us in our homes, in the community, in spaces which are not open or accessible to us. So torture happens on a daily, and I think if someone wanted to do research, those people who are always hungry for research, I think it would be interesting to see how many, because at times they say after every second or a minute these people die. I wish that research could be done where it is how many people are tortured every minute, and maybe in Uganda or in the world. You see, because we can't run away from it. At least all of us have consensus that torture is happening.
So on that, especially on how large the scale is when it comes to torture, you're talking about the context of looking at the victims of torture. What does that point as far as our situation, the problem of torture here in Uganda?
You see, I appreciate the journalists, especially the media at large, for coming on board in terms of exposing. This is not what we would want, ideally, because of the trauma involved on the victim and the community, the survivors, the dependents. But still, it is one way of bringing to light what is happening in Uganda. Just recently, the Eric Mwesigwa issue, which is viral. And I'm saying it is viral because it has preempted or forced some duty bearers to come out and speak in light with what is happening. For example, the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs, Honorable Norbert Mao, came out and said, no, torture is not allowed in Uganda, and the action is going to be taken. He was referring to the pronouncement of the Attorney General about the position of the state, that we shall not defend officials for torture. You see,
but isn't that the problem?
Which one?
Because one of the, I remember last time we had this discussion and I asked you, why is this problem still prevalent in our society? And one of the things you mentioned is because of the fact that for some reason, whether it be culture or our background, torture is something that is acceptable to a certain instance, to a certain extent when it comes to our societies. So isn't that the problem? Is it that we focus, we see the end of the matter instead of beginning? What do I mean by that? That many times they're talking about torture, especially of those who are in opposition to government, and yet the real issue starts from home, starts with the individual, starts with us knowing that one, it's not okay to beat our children, starts with that gruesomely beat our children, starts with us knowing that we are not supposed to beat domestic workers, and it's not okay for us as persons, whether we work together or whether we in school together, to assault one another. Isn't that where the issue lies, that we focus so much on the big picture that we forget where the root of the issue is?
Of course, in this, for me, my argument is that in this fight against torture, there is no one size fits it all. It is whether you want to tackle the problem from up, because we have levels in terms of prevention. Even us, the rights holders, we have a role to play. Right? You are talking about homes. Yes, as you handle the issues, the root causes in a home. Because if you are handling issues, root causes in a home, you are not only handling issues of torture, but also issues of violent extremism. Because at the end of the day, torture and violent extremism have a connection, and one thing leads to the other. Because of how you treat someone, it may have a bearing on how they will behave in society, engaging in acts of torture, etc., because of what they went through before. But also, looking on, as these things take place, looking on, what do I mean? The state agencies, police, and other players.
But doesn't the first looking on starts with us as family members? Because that's what I'm talking about. We quickly, yes, state agencies and the police have their mandate, but police and the state agencies need us as communities and family members to also be involved in the process, because if investigations are happening, unless witnesses come forth, then the investigations will not be successful. So isn't the first problem that many of us as family members, as community members, we are the first to look away when it comes to the issue of
now the issue is, in fact, that's why I began by saying, in fact, that is the issue which I was discussing here. You have said it very well, that we always tend to look at the bigger problem than the cause. The next thing for me I would ask is, why are people looking on? Because now that would be the problem. Why do people look away? And that's why I say it is possibly because we have not appreciated who a torture victim is. Because when we understand and appreciate who a torture victim is, this person who is listened to, who is heard by many but listened to by a few, this person who is tortured or victimized when cameras are not there for the public to see, this person whose tears speak more than the statements they speak, this person who feels isolated and withdrawn from the public, this person who even fears the colonial judicial system, that when they go to court, they even break down when they are trying to express themselves. This person who, even when justice is being done, it is not seen to be done because they are lost within the chain on where to go, if I'm compensated, or what to do next. This person who is not protected by even from speaking. You see, there is no kind of witness protection whatsoever. The trauma, no one listens to them. You are seeing on online media, some people even saying that tomato sauce, etc., people making a mockery of what this person's life has become. This person whose self-esteem has been tarnished. They are torn apart. You see? Now, this kind of person, until we appreciate this kind of person, that's when we can say, okay, and I believe that's what the drafters of these laws had in mind. Like, okay, I think this torture, beyond being a human rights violation, it should become a crime. Why? Because I think they had a glimpse of the effects it has. Now, it is about appreciating the effects that now we can have a collective action towards the same problem. Now, we stop being blinded by having to defend the institutions we represent. We stop being blinded by having to defend the perpetrator. We stop being blinded by throwing our duty to account away. That, oh, you got the Uganda Human Rights Commission. Oh, you go to, we have investigated. I saw that communication from the Uganda People's Defense Forces about Eric Mwesigwa. Since it has come to light, we can discuss about it. Who alleges that he was tortured? Because that is the language of the law. Even if the evidence is vivid, alleges that he was tortured. He runs. You ask yourself, why did he go to another person instead of going to these institutions before? There is an issue of fear, the trauma, the trust, the confidence. Not only in state institutions, but all of us as a community. There is that fear this victim has, the suspicion. How will they trust me? Will they believe me? You see, the evidence is there, but the story to the evidence is not clear for you to be helped. And that's why when the UPDF came out with a statement through the spokesperson saying they have done their investigations within the security agencies and they have not had a trace of this person being in any person's hands. This speaks to throwing our duty to account away. Because the issue is that then who did this? Because under the Constitution in Article 17, it says every citizen has a duty to respect the rights and freedoms of others, but also to work together with lawful agencies in maintenance of law and order. Now, the issue should not be you go to the Uganda Human Rights Commission or police and report. The issue is, how do we help this person in terms of the criminal justice system? And even if we are throwing this person, for me I call it throwing, and that's why I said these victims are lost in the way because they don't know where to go. Now, you are saying go to the Uganda Human Rights Commission. Why do you want to negate torture to only a human rights violation? Yet it is already a crime. The law is clear. This is a crime. It is the duty of police to investigate all these crimes, and the DPP prosecutes. So why are we throwing away? The same thing happened with the Zake Francis case, where he was awarded 75 million shillings for the torture he went through. But there was, I don't know whether it was deliberate or unfortunate, to negate the criminal proceedings. If you have if you have ruled that there was torture and this person is worth compensating, then why don't you proceed either by investigating and prosecuting the people involved in his torture?
Now, in light of this discussion of security agencies allegedly giving this responsibility to other agencies such as human rights offices, what is your take on the closure of the UN Human Rights Office that is going to happen here in Uganda?
My take is that they also closed, even DGF was closed, the Democratic Governance Facility, which was a pool of embassies. Yeah, talking just about, but the embassies. Now, UN. For me, I think human rights is as old as mankind. We should stop moving in the book of Lamentations and go to the book of Acts. At the end of the day, it is not about when we start becoming too suspicious or overly suspicious of one another. One another meaning the state and the non-state actors. There is some officer who say that they hate the word non-state actors, that we should be co-actors, not non-state actors, that because we are citizens. But that is the word anyway. So the issue is that how do we complement each other? You see? That we reach a point where the state is not suspicious of our dealings. The issue we are dealing with here is suspicion. The closures, it is suspicion. What are you doing? I don't understand what you are doing. So the non-state actor that is not aware of what the other person is doing. The state actor is also not aware of what the other person is doing. So what happens? The clash. You are looking at the NGO bureau. The stringent requirements which are popping up. This is forcing most of the civil society actors into self-regulation. Most people are fearing to come and speak out. And at the end of the day, it is okay, we have spoken enough, but we understand who this torture victim is. Because only then can we say, okay, it is my duty. We will stop being blinded to defend an institution. We are not in this person we have not seen this person, and become our brother's keeper. You see, let me borrow from now the Bible, because this is a religious ACTV. The story of Cain and Abel. God says, Cain, where is your brother? The man says, am I my brother's keeper? Now, that is what is happening. That is a problem. The state is supposed to be a brother's keeper because it has a duty to protect life and property of the citizens. And it implies investigations. Now, when you start saying, you go there, I don't have, then was. It is your duty to reveal to us who was. But also, what we have also failed to do, because we have not understood who a torture victim is, that is why we don't have a planned way, a systematic way in how to help. How are you going to treat this person you don't understand? How are you going to rehabilitate this person you don't understand? How are you going to foster access to justice to this person you don't understand? So at the end of the day, we just scratch the surface.
Indeed, and when it comes to protecting the rights, especially of these torture victims and ensuring that they get due justice, do you think the closure of this Human Rights Office is a slap on the fight against torture and other human rights violations?
For me, I think it is not. It is yes and no. It is a yes because the work we do is not for profit making. We don't get profits out of this. We are not running businesses. Human rights is a calling, a passion to speak out for others. And then these players, the institutions, the diplomatic missions, they come in to aid, facilitate the work, the process. It is, we presume it is goodwill. We are supplementing on what the state, complementing what the state is supposed to do.
Co-actors.
Co-actors. Now, the challenge is what I talked about, suspicion, where we don't trust one another. That's when you see closures, freezing bank accounts, revocation of certificate, denial of this. So I think then the no is that we, before even these diplomatic missions come in to support us, we ought to be defending rights. It's supposed to be a lifestyle. It is supposed to be a routine. So those ones, for me, my appeal to even other civil society actors is that we shouldn't give up. Our work should be to show the state that actually our work is complementing the work you are supposed to do. We are not opposing in any way, but also exposing the violations and abuses does not mean that we are trying to spoil the image of the state. We are just saying, please try to take action. You see, in fact, when the Attorney General came out and said the state will not defend officials on torture, for me, the implication of that statement, that pronouncement is not that the state will not defend the officials, but the implication is that the state is going to prosecute these officials. The state should start prosecuting. We should start seeing it. These people are involved. Prosecute them. You see? Other than defend, saving face. Prosecute. For my belief, prosecuting is the best way of police rebranding its image, of the UPDF keeping its image, of anything. It is by punishing. Punish, then people will see, the right soldiers will see, okay, there is the will. The will is there. You see, other than confusing the victims, go here, go there, go there, doesn't in any way help the local person.
Indeed, and on your call for us to understand torture victims, what exactly, in addition to what you already mentioned, should we understand about torture victims that will help us understand why it's important for us to stop this issue, to curtail this issue, to end this issue of torture in Uganda?
The best way we can help a victim is by empowering the victim. Empowering them with not only information, but also empowering them with the available response mechanisms in place on where they can access justice. Justice is not exclusive to only legal services. That has always been our argument as an organization. That justice doesn't mean going to court per se. Because the red tape in the court process can also be a violation of human rights. You see, the adjournments, etc. But justice is inclusive of timely access to treatment. You see, when you look at that victim, the human rights world these days, we say survivor, because the argument is the word victim traumatizes, re-traumatizes the person. But legally, we still refer to them as victims. That is the legal language. When you look at victim, you just now start speaking to, okay, has this person accessed treatment? Which kind of treatment? Has this violation or abuse been documented? How has it been documented? Is this person undergoing rehabilitation? Which kind of rehabilitation? And who is advising this person on the next steps to follow in terms of prosecution? You are saying, let me go to the Uganda Human Rights Commission. But have you also informed me that, yes, you can do two things, criminal proceedings and civil proceedings as well? You see, because the issue is not giving this person, the perpetrator, the happiness that, oh, I can torture and compensate. The goal is to punish this person. That, yes, you can torture and you'll be punished. You see? And how deterrent are these punishments? That is where we should go back in terms of. And the reason.
What are some of the punishments that the sanctions that the law prescribes?
The law, of course, in terms of the Prevention and Prohibition of Torture Act, the punishment is not less than is 15 years, not more than 15 years in prison. But also, or you can pay a fine of 7.2 million shillings, Ugandan money. Or if it is aggravated in this law, under Section 5 of this law, there are situations whereby torture can be aggravated and even it goes up to life imprisonment. You see? So that is the gravity of the crime we are talking about. You see? Which even has a threshold of even life imprisonment. Maybe, for example, a child has been tortured. The victim is a child. The number of children we see being exposed to acts of torture. And the issue is, who is accounting for this? Who is accounting for this? Beyond the press statements. Beyond condemning. We condemn, we do this. Condemning is not action. Condemning instigates action. You see? So at the end of the day, we shouldn't wait for UN to come here and speak for us, European Union to come and speak for us, embassies to speak for us. It begins with us. You see? Appreciating who this victim is and who can have a role to play in what. What can Parliament do? Do we have a witness protection law? No. Do we have a national law on legal aid? No. Do we have a policy on rehabilitation? No. You see? So the issue, it goes as deep as that. You see? Are these people aware of where to report? If they are aware, you see, how prepared are they in terms of undergoing the process? You see? So we are talking about someone who is vulnerable, someone whose self-esteem has been beaten, someone who even speaks less than they want to speak. The emotions speak louder than what they would want to speak. You see, all that is the story littered around that invisible wound this person is suffering. Beyond the physical. Because that person, the wounds will dry up. But the wound will remain. So at the end of the day, when I talk about justice, what justice are we talking about?
But first, prevention is better than cure. So how can we prevent issues of torture in our society?
How we can prevent is by creating awareness about these things. We shouldn't get tired of creating awareness. Like you said, every time we talk about what is torture, and at times we may get tired of it, but not everyone has this information, so there is need to raise awareness. Under the Human Rights, the Uganda Human Rights Commission Act 1995, the Uganda Human Rights Commission has a duty in terms of raising awareness, and also in terms of the state has a duty to translate these rights and duties into languages which are accessible and to people. You would ask yourself, how many Ugandans in your village have had access to the Uganda Constitution, especially chapter 4 on the rights and duties in their language? So it speaks, that is where we should be investing resources in. The other issue is also in terms of you see, response can also be in terms of direct response or indirect. The direct response is basically raising awareness, building capacity of state and non-state actors. The state actors on what they are supposed to do. And I think the institutions are doing that. For me, what baffles me is that when you look at these institutions, let us talk about security agencies. UPDF, it has put in place structures which enable capacity building in that line. They have a full directorate on human rights and legal issues. When you look at prisons, they have a full directorate. When you look at police, they have a full directorate. The issue is, why isn't the public utilizing these structures the way they ought to? You see, a situation whereby police or UPDF is not surprised by something coming on the media. You see, a story, so and so has been tortured, and then it is like news to them. They should be aware of this. But also the issue is, we have to invest in trust building. The trust is not there. We can run away from this. I'm very sorry to say it bluntly. There is no trust in state institutions, and now it is also trickling down to non-state institutions. Some of these victims and survivors have lost trust and confidence. The trust may speak to two sides. Maybe they doubt your ability to enable them access the justice they seek, or they doubt your ability to sustain your willingness in terms of, are you going to, how to, up to what stage are you going to help me? You see, in most cases we have seen a situation whereby these victims or survivors go through the process. Tribunal courts at the commission sitting, they order compensation. Even High Court ordering compensation. But the victim is now left stuck there. Where should now I go? How should I proceed to receive this compensation? This compensation is not a gift that, oh, thank you for allowing to be tortured. No. It is for this person to undergo the treatment, the rehabilitation, also restitution, trying to bring you back to the state you were in before. And all these are state obligations, by the way, under Section 6 of the Anti-Torture Law. Rehabilitation, restitution, and compensation.
And on that point, what, apart from that, what redress do victims of torture have when it comes to the law, when it comes both to state actors and non-state actors?
Actually, the duty towards torture victims is to the state. The only the only duty we, the rights holders, have is to report. Under Section 20 of the Prevention and Prohibition of Torture Act, duty to report torture. That is my only duty. I've reported. Your duty is to go ahead and investigate, even documenting some of these things. Then also, under Section 6 of the Anti-Torture Law, the Prevention and Prohibition of Torture Act, it is a state duty to compensate, rehabilitate, you see, and restitute this person, trying to bring them back. Someone used to do to ride a motorcycle, but he can no longer do it. You try to bring them back, restituting, bringing them back. I don't know how I can simplify that word, but it's trying to bring them back to the other, as if nothing happened. But the challenge is the injustice is in the delay. Of course, the state, it is understandable, the state may say the resources are not there. But also, the issue is then, if the resources are not there, why shouldn't we invest in prevention? Why should we look on when officials are engaging in acts of torture? Because the effects are expensive to the victim, but also to the state as a whole. So why shouldn't we make this a collective action and stop politicizing it? Because if tomorrow, for example, an NRM person comes up and says I was tortured, will other political party players say, no, that is NRM, we shouldn't bother, we should be happy he was tortured? If DP comes up, was tortured, should NRM say, oh, no, that is a DP, we don't care? Torture is not a political issue. You see, it is a national issue. And as long as we don't appreciate that, then we'll start discussing trivial matters. Where were you? What was he doing? We don't know that person. We will even start wasting time on discussing small issues like abductions and arrest, instead of looking at violations. You see, I've seen that debate where people are wasting time discussing, is it an abduction? Is it an arrest? What does it mean to a common person? It doesn't mean anything. What a common person wants and desires and is entitled to is their basic right, entitlement of freedom from torture and cruel treatment. And if it is violated or abused, the accountability for that violation or abuse. And the state is supposed to account. So we don't have to run away from participation. Allow these victims to participate in the decision-making processes, right from documentation, the consent. They should have informed consent, but also in terms of investigations. Because under the regulations to this anti-torture law, the state can ask someone to participate to help in investigations. You see? You don't have to say that who tortured you. When this victim, we are talking about a person who even doesn't know which person tortured him in terms of identity. Because I may wear a tag here, Kato, but when I'm Waswa, you see? So I will be saying Kato tortured me. But at that police station, they say, no, we don't know someone by those names. Yeah? So at the end of the day, that is how we frustrate. So the victim should be allowed to participate. There should be accountability. UPDF, you shouldn't run away from accountability. Uganda police, you shouldn't run away from accountability. The judiciary should not run away from accountability. And also in terms of empowerment, there is limited empowerment. You see, limited empowerment, limited information. You see, we shouldn't leave this thing of empowering to only civil society actors. There should be a cautious and deliberate move towards empowering in schools, right from schools. You see, we are talking about corporal punishment being illegal and a crime, but what is happening in schools? You see, in terms of discrimination, there should not be discrimination, whether we belong to which political party, whether I'm of which gender. You see, there should not be discrimination in terms of which sustained programs are geared towards prevention and accountability. And there should be rule of law. The judiciary should be allowed to do its work. Police should be allowed to do their work. You see, we shouldn't we shouldn't usurp the powers of police. You see, because when I start seeing statements like, you got police or Uganda Human Rights Commission, I believe those institutions know what to do. You see? But at the end of the day, you also have an obligation in terms of, if this victim is alleging torture from your end, then your work is to investigate. If you are not seeing any elements, then involve the victim in this investigation process, but prepare the victim.
Talking victims, that's now you've given us a lot of wisdom, especially as the responsibility, which is the biggest, that the state actors have when it comes to prevention and prohibition of torture, as well as ensuring that victims of torture get the redress that is due to them as per the law. But as a non-state actor, what is the center doing to help torture victims, one, but to ensure that we continue to grow when it comes to prevention of torture in Uganda?
Well, as state actors, as non-state actors, what we as an organization have continued to do, we continue to empower both state and non-state actors. The language is rights holders and duty bearers on their rights and duties, you see, and also so the trainings continue. We train. We have a working relationship with in torture prevention with the security agencies. Someone should not say, "Hey, you have a working relationship in terms of what? In terms of prevention and accountability with security agencies, police, UPDF, prisons." We build their capacity on a number of issues, and we are grateful for that. Then also in terms of dialogues, we go to the communities and raise awareness. This is what you should do when you are tortured. This is where you should go. This is what you should expect. This is what you're entitled to. So that they are aware, but also informed decision making. Then also we treat. You see, timely treatment. Documentation is important. There is no court of law you will go to, even if it is even a tribunal, because it is a court at the level of chief magistrate's court, the Uganda Human Rights Commission tribunals. There is no tribunal you go to or court you go to which will not want evidence. You see, a story should be backed up with evidence. How are you going to have that evidence? It is documentation, effective documentation, timely documentation. During the break, I was telling you about the Human Rights Enforcement Act. You see, we shouldn't implement or enforce these laws in isolation of others. We have, besides the Prevention and Prohibition of Torture Act, we have the Human Rights Enforcement Act, which is very clear and it gives too much powers to court in terms of the remedies to take and the actions, the procedure. As we speak now, under the Human Rights Enforcement Act 2019 of Uganda, torture has no statutory limitation. You are not limited on when to report a crime of torture. But also, it should not make the victim lazy not to go and report in time. Why? Because the evidence disappears. In terms of the direction of events, the recollection of events can disappear with time. You see, and also with the trauma. You see, so at the end of the day, the documentation should be there. That even if you want to report after 10 years to take over, to agree on proceedings, whether criminal or civil, you already have your documentation in place. The other issue also is in terms of what we do also, we also try to engage other players in terms of collective actions, advocacy efforts. These policies and laws we are talking about, the witness protection law, the legal aid law, national policy on rehabilitation, they are not ours. It is what Uganda committed to when they signed and ratified some regional and international instruments. So we are just encouraging them to fast track what they committed to do and start putting in place measures on how to, whether it is piecemeal, but fine, put in place measures on how. You see, we are talking about a victim who needs protection. We are talking about witnesses who need protection. Some cases of justice has been denied because witnesses are not willing to come forth. And not because they are not willing, but there is a root cause, the fear. You see, a witness, you have seen in this part of the world, you have seen where it is very easy for a witness to become a suspect. You have seen it. So some people say, I know what happened, but for me I don't want. Before you know it, a witness, remove your shoes, remove your belt, But I'm a witness. You know, you are going to help with investigations. How do I help with investigations yet I'm inside behind bars?
Those are things that.
So those are that is the irony in terms of in this journey. But we should stop being blinded by trivializing issues, defending, and embrace accountability, and know that this is a collective, and torture does not discriminate. Whether a child, whether an adult, whether an elderly person, whether you belong to which political party, whether you're of which religion, torture does not discriminate.
And it's a very collective responsibility.
Yes.
We'll have to end that discussion there.
Yes.
But thank you so much, Mr. Paul Kirya, for taking us through that discussion and for giving us the solutions to this prevalent problem in our society. And now we know what to do, that it's a collective responsibility. Yes, the state actors or the duty bearers have the duty to ensure that we live in a torture-free society and that victims of torture get the requisite redress. But as well, it falls upon us as family members and community members